Swa, Swadishniyam, own seat, Asadhya, reaching, Punaha, again, Saha, he, Devaha, the demigod, Shanai, without delay, Jitashwasa, controlling the breathing, Nivritta, retired, Chittaha, intelligence, Nyasidat, sat down, Arudha, Arudha, in confidence, Samadhi Yoga, in meditation on the Lord. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhishar and Arvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Thereafter, being unable to achieve the desired destination, he retired from searching and came back again to the top of the lotus. Thus, controlling all objectives, he concentrated his mind on the Supreme Lord. Purport. Samadhi involves concentrating the mind upon the supreme cause of all, even if one is unaware of whether his actual nature is personal, impersonal, or localized. Concentration of the mind on the Supreme is certainly a form of devotional service. To cease from personal sense endeavors and to concentrate on the Supreme cause is a sign of self-surrender. And when self-surrender is present, that is a sure sign of devotional service. Each and every living entity needs to engage in devotional service to the Lord if he wishes to understand the ultimate cause of his existence. Let us make some prayers before we start to discuss. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namaha Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I didn't realize it would be so tensed if I'm giving Bhagavatam class in front of Radha Shamsundar. I'm not sure if you all ever had experience. Sometimes we say yes to something without knowing the magnanimity of it, and then when you're about to do it, then it hits. Wow. So I mean that my heart is actually racing quite a lot. I gave talks, like a couple of classes in front of Kishori, but I think the place was so familiar, I didn't feel quite huge, but now I'm quite anxious. But thank you all for being here. Now I'm trying to find out, yeah. In this tension, if I also lose my notes, then I cannot speak anything. So, so as the verse, as we all know, we are currently in the section where Maitreya is instructing Vedara about all the Bhagavatam lessons that he heard from his spiritual master. So one of the, and this section is basically about Lord Brahma's birth, which we just discussed a couple of days back, and then his endeavors to understand the Supreme Lord, what was his cause of creation, what is his purpose. So as I was preparing for the class, and then it just occurred to me just this morning, was many a times we have this question is, yes, Srimad Bhagavatam is there, that's a scripture which helps us understand the devotional service, understand the prayers of the Supreme, all the devotees on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But is it actually applicable to us on the level of where, for us as on a professional level or on level? And I'm sure like there are multiple ways of seeing this pastime of Lord Brahma, but how one angle that I was seeing was this journey that he is going through right now is a journey from failure to success. So he took birth, and then he wanted to understand who he was. He was on a purpose to identify who is what was his. I think in the verse 18 it says where did he come from and all of that. And in the first endeavor that he made, it was an utter failure. He went like it's quite a lot of journey to go through the whole stem of the lotus. He went through all of that, and eventually couldn't find anything. And that's quite a lot of dejection in your first endeavor. And then, as it says, and I think we will discuss in the next subsequent verses, when he went back to his original place, which is the lotus, and then when he concentrated on prayers, and then made sure that he was just not relying on his own self-endeavor and self-effort, then eventually it became a success for him, where Lord, I think it comes in the next verse, where Lord, because of the efforts that he put in, and then because of the knowledge that he received, then the Supreme Personality of Godhead revealed himself within the heart of Lord Brahma. So it's a classic journey of Shri Radha Shyam Sundar ki Jai. So it's a classic story of rags to riches, which is kind of most of the novels and other things that we have in this world, where there is a hero who is on a purpose, and then in the first time when he is kind of not well prepared, he tries to attack the villain. Then he fails, and then he goes back and then seeks shelter of some other higher purpose or higher personality who has much more understanding, and then he gets success. So that's one way. And then so there are obviously, with any pastime there comes lessons. There are multiple lessons that we can also learn from here. One, most of us are parents or leaders in many ways, and all of us are also followers of Srila Prabhupada and our own spiritual masters. So as a leader, if I was trying to look at it from Krishna's standpoint, as a leader, Krishna was there, and then the first Chaturvyuha came, and then Mahavishnu, and then Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and from him came Brahma. So it's a lot of effort also from Krishna's side, if you look at from just the time and then the effort that it took. But Krishna was not anxious for Lord Brahma to just succeed. He didn't give him an easy path. He made sure that he was giving him the inspiration, like once the Lord Brahma failed, and then when he went back to the top, it was not that he randomly assumed that, okay, now I have to pray. It was an inspiration that it says that as he was hearing the water droplets falling down, that he heard the word ta, pa. And that was the inspiration that Lord was giving him. So Lord was still there with him. It was not that Lord created Lord Brahma and then just said, you just go. It was neither of the extremes. Sometimes we have this extreme of where we are hand-holding our followers and then our subordinates. Or sometimes we just give free rein and saying that whatever you want to do, just do it. But in the case of Lord, he was constantly present with Lord Brahma, but he still made sure that he was giving the space and the time for Lord Brahma to fail. And in doing that, when he came back, then Lord gave him the inspiration to do the tapa. And from Brahma's standpoint as a follower, he was not, as also the verse says, when Lord Brahma kind of initially put in the efforts, in the verse 20, it says, it's amazing. The words, Maitreya Muni starts the verse saying, Tamasi apare. He says, because of an ignorant way of searching. So Lord Brahma, he started searching, and once he realized that my endeavors are not right, he still kind of was not adamant and saying that I'm here, I'll follow what comes right to me. He was not adamant in saying that once he realized that his own self-endeavors were not giving him success, then he took shelter of the higher energies and the Supreme Lord that was surrounded by him. And he was trying to take cue. It's so easy. Like many times we also get cues from very not so obvious places. In the case of Lord Brahma, it was not so obvious place. Obviously, he was in a place that was surrounded by water. He was sitting on a lotus, and it's natural that the water drops fall. But he was still very present and was able to still take cues from that place, saying that, oh, this is the inspiration that the Supreme Lord is giving me to do tapasya. And then he was, as a follower, he was at it. He was self-conscious of correcting himself. He was always doing that course correction when in the first time when he failed. And then so as a follower, it's I'm sure like there are multiple lessons that we take from that, but on our level that could come up to my mind, I was thinking that it's an amazing story of, as I said, failure to success, and for us, what lessons that we take. And then, and coming back to the verse, both the verses itself, Srila Prabhupada, I think one of the most impactful book of Srila Prabhupada that he has written, apart from Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and in the smaller books, is the Science of Self-Realization. I know so many devotees. In fact, my father himself was part of the process of Krishna consciousness, and he met devotees. He was there for almost 10 years. But he was never convinced with the philosophy or anything that we were doing. He was just, okay, my elder son is doing, my wife wants it. My younger son is just interested going to temple, so let me just take it. It was just a duty for him to, duty as a husband, duty as a father, just taking us to temple. But he himself was never convinced. But the moment he read Science of Self-Realization, something changed in him. So that's, and in this case also, as you see in Lord Brahma's case, his journey was that of self-realization. He wanted to understand who is he, who is his creator, what is his purpose. And I was just trying to understand how Srila Prabhupada actually defined self-realization as. And in my search, when I was doing that search in the Veda base for the self-realization that Prabhupada translated, he translated, like with anything, Srila Prabhupada translates many of these words depending on the context that he's speaking, and in many ways. And in one of the class, Shri Radha Sandar ki, Shri Radha Madhav ki, Shri Gaurachandra ki. And in one of the class that Srila Prabhupada was giving in Hyderabad back in 1974, he translates self-realization as, once you're self-realized, you see the Lord and you see yourself. And for seeing yourself, it is very important, first of all, you should see the Lord. And then he goes on to give the example of the sun. Unless the sun is present, we cannot, like right now, we can take the example of the light or sun, the classic example of light. Unless we are able to see the sun and unless we are in the presence of the sun, we cannot even see ourselves. So Srila Prabhupada says that for self-realization, one of the first steps that is needed is realizing the Supreme Lord, which we also see in this classic case with Lord Brahma. And as I was saying, Lord Brahma's failure was because of the ignorant way of searching. So in our self-realization also, we might have seen examples where one of the reasons why we have obviously many philosophies, that not just the Vaishnava philosophy, but also Mayavad philosophy and all of that. Many people who follow the philosophies which are misguided, even for them, it's a question of self-realization. They want to understand who they are. They want to understand what is their purpose and all of that. But sometimes, as in the case of Lord Brahma, it's an ignorant way of searching that happens. And we are just fortunate to be here in many ways. For many of the people that we know, it's many a times you kind of not know what to do. And then Srimad Bhagavatam also in 4th canto, it talks, the verse says that it basically is saying about how to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth. It says that we can never know, which was the case of Lord Brahma also, we can never know the Supreme Personality of Godhead by mental speculation. In the case of Lord Brahma, he was trying to make his own efforts. Okay, he thought, I am on the lotus flower. There is a stem. There should be some beginning somewhere. So let me just go and find it. So he was trying to understand and identify the Supreme Lord through mental speculation. And then when he did that, it was a failure. And in that also, in the purport to the 4th canto, when the verse says that we cannot identify with the mental speculation, Srila Prabhupada talks about the frog story. I'm sure, did you ever hear about the Dr. Frog story? So the Dr. Frog, this again comes in the book Science of Self-Realization. The Dr. Frog story, as it goes, is there was this small well besides the Atlantic Ocean, and there's it was a hub of it was a hub of frogs, and one of the frog is called as Dr. Frog. And for him, his whole existence was just this well. And one of the frog goes out of the well, identifies, oh, there is this big ocean that's out there. And then he comes back and says that, hey, we should all go back and go into this Atlantic Ocean. Then this frog says, is the Atlantic Ocean 5 times bigger than this well? He says, no, it's much bigger. Is it 10 times bigger? No, it's much bigger. And he just goes on, and because of, in his mental level, this is the standard size of existence. And from when you look at it from your standpoint, the Dr. Frog could never understand. And it so happens, and Srila Prabhupada then goes on and talks about both the Aroha Pantha and Avaroha Pantha, which is the classic case of understanding the knowledge in our lives also. In the case of the Dr. Frog, he had some frame of idea of understanding things, and then he was not relying, or he was not trying to listen to the other explorer frog who came up. He was not giving the chance for him to kind of explain what is Atlantic Ocean. He was not ready to listen. He was just saying, okay, I know there is a structure of water that I know. I'll keep expanding, and then eventually I'll come to that point. And he could never come, because how can you compare Atlantic Ocean to a well? Like, however number of times you multiply the size, you can never come. And in the process of the Aroha Pantha, which Srila Prabhupada translates this as inductive, Srila Prabhupada translates that as you collect all the information that you have, and then you start to draw conclusions, which was also the case in Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma thought he was trying to collect all the information that he had. Okay, I'm here. I'm on a lotus. The lotus means it should have a stem, and all the lotuses come from water. So there should be somebody within the water. So he started going there. He was trying to create conclusions with all the information that he was trying to gather. And it didn't work for him. And many a times we also see this, there is this go-getter attitude in this world where just go get it. You collect all the information that you could collect. And then once it is there, then you just go and collect and all of that. And in this, when we are following the process of Aroha Pantha, when we are trying to collect the information and drawing conclusion, it could be of two cases again. One is the case of Lord Brahma, where he was misguided because of ignorant way of searching. Or are we misguided because of ignorance, or we is misguided because of the pride that is there within us? In the case of Lord Brahma, it was, as the verse says, it was the ignorant way of searching. But in the case of the Dr. Frog, it was the pride that was not letting him understand the magnanimity and the size of the Atlantic Ocean. Which we again, if we go back to Bhagavatam, in the example, in the pastime of Bali Maharaj, when Lord Vamandev comes to meet him and asks for the three, like rather than going into the whole thing, Bali Maharaj then is doing this huge sacrifice, and Vamandev comes. He's so attracted by seeing Vamandev, and he says, I want to give something to him. And then Vamandev, when he says that I want just 3 paces of land that are based on the size of his feet, then Bali Maharaj is very surprised. He says, you're a small boy. And then it's so interesting, the verse that he says, Mam vachobhi samaradhyaha lokanam ekamishwaram padatrayam vrinite yo abuddhiman dvipa dashusham. It says, the first verse says, Mam vachobhi samaradhya. He says, I'm very pleased by your words, but lokanam ekamishwaram. He's saying that I am the only master of this entire creation. I mean, in reality, he was the only master that was there. But if you look at it from Supreme Lord's standpoint, who was Vamandev, he was standing there, and I cannot go and say to Radha Shamsundar that I own Aurora. For Radha Shamsundar, it's a silly thing. For Vamandev also, it was silly. Like from Bali Maharaj, he was so. It says that one of the reasons Vamandev did the whole pastime of just covering the entire creation in his two is he understood that Bali Maharaj has this pride. So it's also important that we introspect: are we being misguided because of the pride, or is it because of the ignorance that we are being misguided? And because depending on that, it's so important for us also to kind of diagnose any problem that we have in life. Unless you diagnose what is the problem, then you cannot identify the proper solution for that. So once we identify what is the problem that we have, is it the pride, or is it the ignorance? And if it is just being ignorance, then you just approach the proper teachers and kind of be open to the cues and then the lessons that the Supreme Lord is giving. And if it is the pride, then as Srila Prabhupada says that when you're becoming, when you're feeling too low in your spiritual life, look back who you were. Then you understand that have made a lot of spiritual progress. And when you're proud, then look at the acharyas. Then you understand how fallen you are. Like as it's so important to kind of also have a look at the back, and also there is some progress from the ignorance that we came because we took shelter of the proper teachers and proper sources. But there is also pride in us which needs to be eradicated so that we can move forward and still serve in the mission of Lord Chaitanya. And then in the purport also, in the purport to the 21st verse, Srila Prabhupada writes, to cease from personal sense endeavors and to concentrate on the supreme cause is a sign of self-surrender, which comes back, as we discussed, is the first is the Aroha Panta, which is my own self-endeavors. I'm in a go-getter mentality. And what is the surrender, which comes back to the Avaroha Panta, as Srila Prabhupada says, to cease from personal sense endeavors and to concentrate on supreme cause is a sign of self-surrender. And when self-surrender is present, that is a sure sign of devotional service. As we also saw in the example that we were discussing, Srila Prabhupada also quotes in the Dr. Frog story and otherwise also is, we need the sun to reveal himself. Srila Prabhupada there he writes that irrespective of however big a torchlight that you can invent, you put the torchlight, you can never identify the sun as long as he reveals himself. You go in this, we have this amazing national forest, we go to this Yosemite or anything. In the pitch dark, you put these huge torchlights and try to identify the sun. We cannot, because the sun is not revealing himself. Or in the case of when the sun is covered by a cloud, even in that case, we cannot kind of push the cloud away and then order the sun to reveal himself. All we can do is wait, be present there and wait for the sun to reveal himself. And without, as Srila Prabhupada also says, without sun, we cannot see the sun himself and we cannot see ourselves also. And so how do we make sure that the Lord, which is in the case of the sun, is, we know that for the sun to reveal, you just have to wait for the next 12 hours. It's at 7 p.m. We know that next 7 a.m. the sun will reveal. So is there a specific place or idea for us to understand that how does Lord reveal himself? And like with always, we can go back to Bhagavad Gita, where in the 10th chapter, 10th verse, as the Lord says, Tesham satata yuktanam, bhajatam pritipurvakam, dadhami buddhi yogantam, yena mam upayantite. So he says, dadhami buddhi yogam. And Srila Prabhupada translates that buddhi yoga as devotional service, engaging ourselves in devotional service. And so it's interesting that how the Lord explains, Tesham satata yuktanam, like you just keep at it, satata. You just keep at it. And when somebody might translate this Tesham satata yuktanam as a go-getter mentality, like we are at it. But then immediately the Lord says, Bhajatam priti purvakam. So when you are doing that go-getter mentality, it's so important to also have that priti. And in priti, what do? We do the bhajatam. We do as in the case of Lord Brahma, what did he do? He went back. The go-getter mentality was not working for him. And then he went back. He took the cue of tapa and he started meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And how did he meditate? He meditated with priti, with the intention of pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when we do that, when we do the bhajatam priti purvakam, and as happened in the case of Lord Brahma, which we'll see in the next verse, eventually the Lord, which we have seen in many examples of Dhruva Maharaj, or in the case of, who is this Maharaj that becomes Vritrasur? Chitraketu Maharaj, or many, in the case of Bali Maharaj also, the moment he took away the pride from his heart and surrendered to Vaman Dev just didn't give him some random kingdom. Okay, you are a Kshatriya. It is your nature to be a ruler. So I'll just give you this simple random kingdom. but he gave this Sutaloka, which is described as Rompad Maharaj in one of the recent classes that he was giving. Sutalaloka is much more opulent than the heaven himself. And not just the material opulence that Lord Vamandev gave. Lord Vamandev just gave himself completely to him. When Bali Maharaj gave everything to him, when he did the whole Atma Nivedanam, what did he get in return? He got everything that he lost, and he got also something that he could have never achieved with his go-getter mentality, which was Vamandev himself was the gatekeeper. And I think there was also this pastime where once Vamandev there was in Sutaloka, was guarding the whole thing, then Lakshmi Devi actually had to come from Vaikunta and then beg Bali Maharaj, saying that please give me my Lord back. So that's how giving the Lord becomes when we do the Bhajatam Priti Purvakam, which if we go into the details of the pastimes, there are unlimited pastimes where we can get into the details, but the essence, for lack of time, is just keep at it. Tesham Satata Yuktanam. It is important. Srila Prabhupada himself, what better definition can we give for a go-getter mentality? Like a personality of 70-year-old coming to an entirely new place. I mean, now I struggle even for 32 years. So I cannot even imagine what was his struggles for 70 years. He was a go-getter, but his go-getter mentality was not just based on his self-endeavors. There was his self-endeavor. He was putting in effort. He was walking around in Delhi trying to distribute the Bhagavatam and every book that he was giving. But even in that go-getter mentality, he was, like in the case of Lord Brahma, he was open to all the suggestions and everything that he was getting. Like we have all these books that Srila Prabhupada eventually wrote is because some random person in the streets of Delhi said to Srila Prabhupada, saying that, Swamiji, these pamphlets and then the books, these magazines that you are giving people eventually just throw it off. It's important to have it in the book form. And Srila Prabhupada didn't think that, oh, I'm this Vaishnava Acharya, I'm a sannyasi, I'm 65-year-old, who are you? You are a Griya Medi, why should I even listen to you? But Prabhupada was seeing everything in connection to the Lord himself, and he saw that, oh, this is where my spiritual master is giving me an instruction saying that print books. And now we see that the whole movement is just flourishing because of the books. And so it's important to be that go-getter mentality. We cannot achieve anything without having that go-getter mentality. If we are just being lazy, we cannot do anything for ourselves, what to speak of doing something for our others. But it's important to have that combination of go-getter mentality with the Bhajatam Priti Purvakam. And when we do that, Tesham Satatiktanam Bhajatam Priti Purvakam, when we do that, Dadhami Buddhi Yogam Tam, then Lord himself reveals, which we see in the case of Lord Brahma. And it's interesting also that I was thinking in the case in the verse 20, when Maitreya is saying to Vidura, he says that, "O Vidura, while searching in that way about his existence, Brahma reached his ultimate time, which is the eternal wheel in the hand of Vishnu, and which generates fear in the mind of living entity like fear of death." And then Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says that the time is basically an amsha of Sudarshan Chakra. And in that way, the time is destroying everything. And all of us are, one of the main fears that I'm sure I have is the lack of time. We never know. Like sometimes you want to do a lot of things in the day, but there's not enough time. Or sometimes we think, okay, eventually I'll get to that. But there is we might not accept it or accept it, but inherently there is this intricate fear that, oh, I might not have enough time to do that. So as Maitreya is saying that, which generates fear in the mind of living entity like the fear of death. Internally, we all have the fear of death. So do we have the fear of time. But we see in the examples of Bali Maharaj or Srila Prabhupada himself, or in the case of Brahma, once he started doing this, the Dadami Buddhi Yogantam, once he started doing the meditation, he didn't think, oh, I'm created for doing something. He is, as a Guna avatar, he is the personality for passion. Like we see that people of passion need to do something. But in the case of Lord Brahma, even though he is that guna avatar of passion, he was not thinking. It's just waste of time for me to just sit here and meditate. And it also says in the next verse that he meditated actually for 100 years of his time. It's a long time. He was not afraid of the time. The same time which Maitreya Muni says that frightens everyone, when we are doing this Bhajatam Priti Purvakam becomes our best friend, which happened in the case of Lord Brahma. The time he was not rushing it, he was just there, trying to just dedicate himself for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as Srila Prabhupada then says also in the verse 21, Samadhi involves concentrating the mind upon the supreme cause of all, even if one is unaware of whether his actual nature is personal, impersonal, or localized. Sometimes we come to the point of Bhajatam Priti Purvakam. We start to render devotional service. And unfortunately, then we get into the whole discussion of, as you were there, we were, as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami writes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we get into the whole discussion of, am I a gopi? Am I a gopa? Am I a father of Krishna? Am I a mother of Krishna? We get into it's that has place. But as Srila Prabhupada writes here, even if one is unaware of whether his actual nature is personal, impersonal, or localized, Samadhi involves concentrating the mind upon the supreme cause of all. Be honest to ourselves and understand, I am at a place where my primary importance is concentrating my mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead and rendering devotional service. And when we are at it, as Lord Brahma he was not thinking, I'm the only person here. Maybe he was he was not speculating mentally, saying that I have to do that. He was just peacefully just doing the meditation. And eventually when he did that, Lord revealed himself within his heart. And we don't have to endeavor so much. And as again, Srila Prabhupada, then he says, to cease from personal sense endeavors and to concentrate on the supreme cause is a sign of self-surrender. So rather than kind of getting into this unnecessary intricate details of kind of creating divisions, for a lack of better term, it's so important to do that Bhajatam Priti Purvakam, coming together, rendering the devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As Radha Maharaj says, it's important to be in the mood of servant of the servants. And our mission is, as Srila Prabhupada gave, is just being at his feet, trying to kind of repeat what he has given. And in doing so, trying to do that Bhajatam Priti Purvakam. I'm kind of saying all of that because that's been my personal meditation of late, is like for a long time it was all kind of wishy-washy language of just doing the externals of, when I'm with devotees, just kind of doing that show off of having that higher knowledge and all of that. But internally it was quite shallow. And it's so important. I kind of started to realize that it's so important for me to get into the deeper aspects of my own self-surrender to the Lord and then the parampara. And when we do that, then everything else takes its place, which happened with the Lord Brahma, which happened with Bali Maharaj, which happened with Srila Prabhupada himself. He was just being there, go-getter mentality, which doing the Bhajatam Priti Purvakam. And when he did that, when you're a go-getter mentality, then he also strategized. Srila Prabhupada also strategized. But his primary focus was doing that Bhajatam Priti Purvakam. And when we do that, as Krishna also says, Dadame Buddhi Yogam, and then he gives us that buddhi and then how to perform the devotional service. I'll end here, and then my sincere prayer is that may we concentrate upon, I can speak just for myself, may I concentrate more on just doing that, concentrating on the supreme cause, as Srila Prabhupada kind of states here, and not kind of fighting to create these divisions based on the assumptions and then the perceptions that we all have. So I hope one day I'll be kind of able to understand these messages much deeper. Thank you so much for both of you being here. I hope it made some sense. Any corrections that you... Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Those meditating on those points. One question though, like you mentioned, maybe last time like Brahma, when Brahma was born, I know the man takes, and I'm not sure that the face will have a level or not. He's meditating not for that is not though like later his job is related to the more passion that is all creation. So he's not he's not worried about thinking. I was wondering, like, because since he was born, at least in particular universe, so that time might not have existed.
It could have existed because it says in the next verse that he meditated for 100 years. He says at the end, in the yeah, he is part of this universe. Correct. Yes. Yeah, possible. Right. I think he's inside. Yeah. Yeah. If you go in here and then knock on the door. So, yeah.
So that is like something here. So the tools we have to be able to. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah. That's our journey, I think. Yeah, that. Yeah. Thank you. It says like even if you actually think the droplets are falling, it's t, p, t, p, t, p. So it's the p. Thank you so much.
Understand like this from those huge whatever we're getting, right? We need to need to raise ourselves to the mode of witness.
Yeah.
Be conscious of things.
Yes.
I think that's very
Yeah. Srila Prabhupada in one of the Bhagavatam classes, he says, mode of goodness is the first class level in this world, because it helps us, like most of the good qualities that we hear of, be present, be conscious, and all of that are a kind of symptoms of mode of goodness. And when we are there, then it kind of helps us, as you're saying, kind of be aware of the surroundings. Sometimes we are just in a rush of like a bulldozer, just
And,
yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah. I don't follow this fully yet. I want to, but one of the things that devotees suggest is like when you're in, like, for example, you're in rush of doing some service, something happens and it's not practical for us to kind of stop and then stop everything and okay, what is the cue that Lord is giving me? That's not possible. But they say that I don't remember who was speaking to, but this devotee was suggesting that it's important to have some time. It was Swayam Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj who was recently talking. He was saying it's important to have that time in the beginning of the day and end of the day, kind of thinking, well, how did my previous day go? And what am I trying to achieve? And then there you're kind of, it's sometimes we think it is not important to give time for ourselves. When you give time for ourselves, kind of focusing on who are you and what is your journey that you want to do that. Like Lord Brahma gave himself that time of 100 years just meditating on the Supreme Lord, just trying to understand what is my purpose. And when he did that, then Lord revealed himself. Like unless we take that time for ourselves, like I don't think we are at that situation where we'll kind of start getting this pop-ups from Paramatma.
it's not that at least to be conscious.
Yeah.
And
Correct. There is everything now. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I think we'll end here.
Okay, Prabhu.
Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.